chefs, what is the beef? Cam here, welcome to episode 51 of the Chef Fit podcast, Leadership. Today we've got a special episode featuring none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Robert Attwood. Rob is obviously a chef, a teacher of chefs, father, family man, and one of the good guys from the industry, and someone who I've wanted to chat to for a long time and pick his brain on a couple of things. So yes, Rob, thanks a million for doing this, bro. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, man. It's good to be here, dude. Thank you. That's a pretty good intro, man. I like that.
Snappy as you like, pal. Snappy. The day, trust me, you should have seen it when it started. It was absolutely brutal. What is it, a podcast? Yeah, I suppose so. Rob, just give us a small bit of background on yourself, dude. Like, whereabouts are you based? How long have you been a chef? And give us a rough idea of what your path has been like career-wise in the past, whatever amount of time you've been in it.
Yeah, it's easy, man. So I'm Australian, based in Queensland. I started my apprenticeship just before my 15th birthday. So 18 years now. I've I've used it to do all sorts of things, man. Travel, see a lot of cool things that people wouldn't have normally been able to see. The industry's been pretty good to me, man. I've worked from fine dining all the way down to like pubs and cafes and everything in the middle. I guess where I'm at now is like the industry's been really good to me, and it's opened a lot of opportunities for me, and I've managed to make a pretty good life for myself out of it. And I guess what my focus now is I'm trying to build a way for people to do that themselves. Show them how you're worth. Don't put up with bad conditions, because as you know, a lot of the boys you work with, it's pretty ordinary, man. And at first I wanted to change the culture of the employers. So I started like consulting with bosses and sort of trying to educate bosses, and I'm like, it's going to be a much easier way to sort of get chefs like you do. Like you sort of take on that mentor role in their health and physical fitness, and so that's sort of where I'm at now. I see a lot of what triggered it all was just seeing, man, I'm just sick of seeing veterans leave, man. Like, so many veterans just leave. And every 10, 15, 20 year vet that we lose is another mentor gone. And our skill sets and our talent pool has been sort of diminishing for a little while now. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of where I ended up where I am now. Teaching and mentoring and stuff.
What do you put that down to, Rob? Like, when you think about the impact that you're trying to have within the industry at the moment, and you're saying that you've had a good career path, but you're well aware of, I suppose, the career path of a lot of chefs, which can be a negative one, you know what I mean? And I think, unfortunately, in this industry, there is, especially back home where I'm from, there is a negative narrative about a chef life these days, which is not great. And I think it's very important what you're doing is giving people a path. So when you're saying that we're like, there's attrition rates within the industry, we're losing staff, we're losing, as I said, mentors. Why do you think that's happening?
I just think the conditions have got so poor for so long that a lot of people just walk away. So two main reasons that I see when I talk to people for walking away is the financial thing. You don't become a chef to get rich. There is money to be made, but you got to be able to be flexible, which brings me to my second thing, family. Like, a lot of chefs just get sick of not being able to be there for their family. The amount of divorcees, single mums, single dads, guys that have, their baby's born and then 10 years later they're a couple of years away from high school because their job just doesn't let them stay there. I think for a long time too, the industry, we sort of got what we deserve in a way.
Right.
I get a little bit of flack for this, but we let it happen because we thought it was like like a Medal of War.
Yeah.
You know, like we thought that made us, that's badass, man. Like, yeah, like I can work 85 hours a week for fuck all because that makes me tough and that makes me hard and that makes me a better chef than you. And I hate that shit, man, because so many people are defined. Like, if you ask me what I am, chef is not top of my list. It's not the first thing I'm going to tell you. Whereas a lot of people let themselves define, like they let themselves be defined by, oh, that's my profession.
Well,
and
I think that martyrdom becomes, that becomes the identity. And I think what people are failing to see is that within that, you're fucking going out on your shield. But it's what's happening in the background that's the problem. Like, you're saying you can do the 80, 90, 100-hour week for years on end, but like ultimately, and this is why fucking I exist in the first place doing what I do, is because that is bullshit, in my opinion. You know what I mean? You might be able to say that, you might be able to tough it out, and we've all done those hours, but it's like, where are you at by the end of that? And what happens at home? Like, if you say it's the divorcees and whatever else, like, it's a very, very, very good point, and I think it's definitely something that needs to be disputed, because we're not going to be able to change the industry unless that narrative starts getting smashed to pieces and people started looking at the fucking reality of it,
Absolutely. So like, we call it the hero chef complex, or the God complex, and I'm sure you would have seen it in the groups. I've seen it many times, like, 60 hours. I remember my first part-time job and I'm just like, man, just shut up, dude. And like, I see examples of people like this guy's like I've seen guys like, man, I work 40 hours a week, I get paid fuckloads and I get to spend time with my family. And people are like, are you even a chef? And I'm like, yeah, he is. You're just jealous, man. You're upset. Like, and there's no reason that you can't have that too. And it's the biggest problem is getting past this, like, just toxic attitude. And I used to be that way, man. Like, I used to be that way. Like, I would work my 70, 80 hours a week. I'd work 6.5, and I'd brag about it like it made me better at my job. I'm like, meanwhile, my boss is laughing his ass off when my hourly rate works out to be $13 a fucking hour, riding me into the ground. Meanwhile, I don't know what's going on. And one morning I wake up and I haven't been outside of a bottle of bourbon for 3 months. I'm like, well, this isn't healthy. And, and I'm like, shit, I never really got heavily into the drug thing, but I know like a lot of chefs have taken a far darker path than me and they've ended up in far worse fucking states than I have. But to me, that's the main obstacle. And then like secondary ones obviously are like bosses, and then even the public itself is to blame, but they're more ancillary to me.
Do you feel like do you feel if, potentially there's a certain amount of responsibility goes to the punters that eat at these restaurants? Is that down to lack of awareness of what working in the industry is like, or what do you mean by that?
So for me, it's a lack of respect for the trade itself.
Right.
So you won't find an electrician getting paid what a chef does. You won't find a plumber getting paid what a chef does, but we're just every bit of a tradesman as they are. However, people aren't going to do their own electricity at home because they know that they can hurt themselves, or they understand that you have to do years of training to learn how to wire a house properly. They think they can go home and make a soup like me, ergo, they don't respect my trade like they would other ones. I'm not going to pay you what that is actually worth, or what your years of experience and expertise reflect, because I can just go home and make the burger myself. And so it's very, very hard to bridge that gap. When people don't really value, and like you said, like you touched on it, like they don't know. It's like I've heard it heaps of times. Like, hey, just flip a steak and cook some veggies. I'm like, yeah, sure, man. Like, sure. Even like getting people, like people's mind, like, man, cooking isn't even the majority of my job. The actual act of getting food to the table isn't actually the majority of my job, mate. Like that's a portion of it, like there's so many other things I have to juggle. And again, chefs are partly to blame for this as well. We have watered down our trade. You don't need a certificate to become a chef. Any Joe Blow can walk off the street and become a chef. And it's true. It's absolutely true. However, bosses see that too, and the public sees that too, and they're like, don't tell me anybody can do this job and then expect top dollar to do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think we have to, yeah, exactly, and we have to reinstall some pride in, and I get a lot of heat again for this when I talk about it. I'm a big fan of formal education. I will never say that you need to go to school to become a successful chef, because it's just not true. However, I think we need to get away from shitting on people that have. I don't think it's productive, and I think we need to restore some of that pride and some of that prestige. Do you feel
that's because food has gone such a different direction in the past couple of years, and the industry itself, from a business perspective, is growing so much? And obviously, for lack of a better term, I suppose, hipster culture, where there's places popping up left, right, and center. There's far more diversity in it. That maybe formal education and formal technique within a kitchen that was bread and butter 20 years ago. That's kind of gone out the window.
Yeah, it's destroyed it. So I have a theory, or I have a hypothesis about. So the middle market has wreaked havoc on our industry. So I mean the middle market, like gourmet takeaways, stuff like that. Your hipster joints, they might sell nothing but burgers, hot dogs, and wings, and they're very good at what they do. They're handmade burgers, etc. It's a highly specialized skill set, but it's destroying it's what it's doing is it's sucking talent away from the upper ones, up from like the sort of tiers above them. It's sucking sort of talent away, and it's conditioning the public to devalue the food again too. So like I can go get a burger, chips, and a beer, a really nice one, for $15 at this place, right? This other place might cost me say $25, but I get waited on. The beer gets poured for me. It's a nicer restaurant. It's a little bit higher grade of beef. The buns weren't bought in; they were handmade, and that matters to us, and that matters to our profession. And we know that that's what separates the people that work in them, but the public have trouble differentiating between them. So, and then what happens is like, so what's happening now and what started to happen a few years ago is like these people, and there's nothing like if you're a cook or a chef that works in those places, that's fine. There's nothing like fucking do as you please, man. It's the free market, They then train apprentices that then sort of like, if those apprentices aren't shown a better way to go work in the elite restaurants, they won't. And then so you're not growing your talent pool upwards. Like you should always try to ascend, and when it comes to money too, like a lot of those places, they'll pay better than the sort of more elite restaurants or the more higher end restaurants, because they're still working in the old mindset that part of your pay is your passion.
Yeah.
Right. Which is, that's intrinsic. That just seems to be intrinsic to the trade,
Yeah.
Look, it's one of those things, man. Like you're never going to fix it. You can just sort of chip away at it, and every little success story or every little gain is good. You would probably feel the way in your work too. You're not going to save everyone, but everyone you do is a step in the right direction. And it's another person spreading your message, and it's another person sort of living that truth where they're sort of trying to aspire to be more or to do better, I guess you could say.
Yeah, of course. And taking that back a sec, Rob, like when you're, it's a very, very good point. It's actually something I haven't even thought of, but it makes perfect sense that we've got mid-tier places coming in, and it's like you're taking a basic food item, you're doing it at a very, very high level. Now, there's obviously not as much of a learning curve to master foods like that. So you've got people who are coming in and they're chefs now, or that's the new generation that are coming up, and there's a massive gap in their expertise and their skills. And going back to this formal education thing, and I think this is really important for any chefs that understand, and this is anyone in fucking anything. There's a consumption period where, if you were to go to college or go to culinary school, you're learning fundamentals. From that, you can then take that and apply that, in an apprenticeship stage where you're tested as, an apprentice, and you learn in a real environment. And then you can take that and apply it into your career. you feel that we're missing that process, or that process is not, chefs are not going through that as much. So we're seeing a distinct drop off in the skill set across the board. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's not being pushed as much, and it's definitely had a devaluing of it. A lot of it, not a lot of it, some of it would stem from the Americanization of the hospitality industry. So lots of big franchise chains, lots of sort of those mid-market sort of places where, like, I know guys that have worked in those places, like they've been cooking for 15 years and that's all they've ever worked. And that's fine. But that's fine. But what that does is, because America's the way it is, and because it's, you know, the most culturally influential and the most financially powerful and all this kind of stuff, those systems get exported and adopted by other parts of the world. Now, Europe is obviously resistant because of its steep traditions in cooking and culinary, especially, you know, France, Italy, Spain, UK to a certain degree. But like Australia, even parts of Asia, man, Asia's a completely different beast, to be fair, in a lot of ways. Yeah. But like Australia, we're definitely following that. Like, we're getting influenced by that, and you will see it start to spread because it's a more economical way of doing business. I don't have to wait 4 years to get somebody to come work in my restaurant who I can rely on to do what I want him to do. Yeah. I can train him for 6 months and then I can start making money off him straight away, or her, whatever. So yeah, like even the apprenticeships themselves, like my apprenticeship was 4 years and it had a total of 6, had a total of 6 months at trade school in it, and then the rest was on the job. There's Australian companies punching out apprentices in 20 months now. Yeah. Like, it's not even 2 years.
But I think what's important about what you just said there is that, you know, people overlook the apprenticeship stage. You know, with any fucking trade, with any job, like, ultimately, it's not always the way. Sometimes it's who, you know, but like in a trade like this, you should be seeking mastery. And I think that's true in anything. And I think we're kind of forgetting that's the key. Like, if you look at your own success, well, you know, there's something to do with the fact that you spent so much time getting good at your trade. I look at my brother back home, Keelan, who won his Michelin star last year, and he's always the fucking example I use. You know, he opened his own place, Variety Jones, tiny fucking spot, more or less no marketing, and his whole life he'd been working in the fucking fire at the highest level to try and push himself to that stage where he was capable of cooking food at that level and delivering it, you know. And I think within this industry that people are very quick, and it's the same thing. Like, I come from obviously a service background, but I also come from a fitness background, and it's the same fucking shit. You know, everyone calls himself a personal trainer. Well, I consider myself a coach, and I'm someone who spent a lot of money, a lot of time, blood, sweat, and tears to get to a certain level. You know what I mean? And I think because there's a low barrier to entry within our industry, that, you know, people can kind of jump through the hoops quickly. It's like, oh, I'm a fucking chef, but like, it's what are you building towards? As you said, there's people in a franchise working 15 years, and it's like, if you think about what you're trying to impact within this industry, right? And you think about what you're trying to convey to chefs, like, what do you feel that you're trying to get across to people at the moment, and what would you like to see change within the industry, and what should we be communicating to the next generation of young chefs coming
up? My main thing is to don't put up with what we put up with, and I'm sorry. So it's sort of so I sort of came in. I started at the tail end of the bad times, and then definitely the generation before me. Right. I apologize to the young for the industry that we've created. We're sorry. However, we need to all work together to be better at it. Okay. I think a lot of older chefs get caught up on I had a shit career and I did it hard, so therefore you have to as well. I hate that shit. I hate it. On the flip side, there's youngins that say, oh, well, I shouldn't even have to work weekends. I'm like, well, no. There are things that are intrinsic to the trade, and there are things that just aren't going to go anywhere. And if you choose to be a chef, you're just going to have to deal with them. Yeah. I think my main thing is always balance. I think my main thing is always balance and what you're comfortable with. So like, if you're the type of person that wants to work 70 hours a week, like your brother, and grind at the high levels, and you want to do that, fuck, man, go right ahead and you do that, man. And nobody should make fun of you, or nobody should deride you for doing that. However, on the flip side, if somebody just wants to chill and travel and just sort of use chefing as a way to sort of have the lifestyle they want, or a lifestyle that suits them, that's fine for them too. You know, like, there's a lot of shaming and there's a lot of elitism that goes on, and that's not just true for cooking. But I want to build an industry where most service industries, people who work in them and people that are successful and people that work in them a long time, you'll find that they're at heart people pleasers, right? And the problem with being a people pleaser is that sometimes you'll sacrifice your own happiness to keep people happy. So chefs will work those extra hours to keep the bosses happy. They'll put themselves under undue stress and their families under undue stress to pull off that good function, or whatever the case may be. And I guess my main point of advocacy is you can have both. Like you really can. Not everybody can, not everybody will, but it's definitely something that we should look at and realize that, like, yes, it's possible. You can. And if you feel like you should, don't feel ashamed for wanting more out of life. Don't sacrifice your life for the career. You know, like, it's just not healthy. The amount of people that think they're going to, I'm going to be Ramsey, or I'm going to be Marco one day, or I'm going to be Grant, or, like, okay, man, 0.5% of 0.5% of you are going to get there. And the ones that do, fuck yeah, man, do your thing. Yeah. And go for it. Like, if that's your dream, go for it. And if you fail, well, fuck, man, you know, shoot high, miss high, you still went a long way anyway. But I feel like some people, they sacrifice themselves and the people they love on the way. And then they get to the end and they're like, well, fuck, you know, was that actually worth it?
And I think that's really, really important to explain to people. And I know it's really something that, you know, in the chefs that I coach and I've come in contact with within Chef It, like, it's the same thing. It's a mentality, and if you take it right back, like, I feel that a lot of chefs, especially where I come from anyway, a lot of chefs come from a working class background, and they come from a back where, you know, some chefs will chase it for the passion, or some chefs will kind of fall into it and then fall in love with it. And when you're in that position, sometimes, and not all the time, but a lot of cases, there's maybe a degree of lacking awareness, low self-esteem, maybe lacking self-respect. You know, sometimes when it's like that, and then you get into an employment situation where it's like, well, you're just fucking expected. You're conditioned to do 70, 80-hour weeks, and sure, I'm going to pay you for 40. Like, you fast forward 10 or 15 years, and I see the outcome of that. The chefs that I come in contact with then are like 20, 30, 40 kilos overweight. Or massively underweight, you know, serious mental health problems, no work-life balance, and serious issues at home, where there's a complete communication breakdown within relationships, like no energy or headspace to even fucking deal with life outside the kitchen. Like, that's the situation for a lot of chefs. And I think the first thing that I'll try and portray to anyone is just self-respect. Try and imagine putting yourself first for a period of time. Like, what would change if you were willing to put yourself first? Like, maybe, and like an example would be, you know, you're not putting yourself first. Your boss is calling you on your day off. Someone else called in sick. Now you're going to fucking come in and cover them. Like, can you do it for me? Yes or no? And it's like, the majority of the time, the chef is loyal, so they will go in and do it.
Yeah, but it's like, of course.
So with that situation, what is your message to people who, chefs who are conditioned with that? Like, what is the first step? Because obviously the employers need to change, but there also has to be something coming from the chef to go, actually, I'm not fucking willing to be treated like that. You know, like, what needs to happen within the chef to start the ball rolling in the right direction?
Yeah. So, it's actually, okay. So for me, it's a priority thing, right? So for many years, I prioritized my job and my boss and my customers over me. And that's very good. That's very good while you're young, and it's good while you're single, and maybe not good's the right word, but it can work, right? It's doable. right? But as you get older and you start to get more attachments or whatever, you have to learn how to prioritize yourself, right? Yeah. And what a lot of people don't, I think, and again, this is definitely speaking to the work you do. If you don't prioritize yourself, eventually everything else is going to fall apart around you. Okay. So if you need time off, or if you need a holiday, or if you need, hey man, I quit cooking for 6 months because I broke down. I could not handle it.
Fuck.
I went and worked labor construction for 6 months because I had enough, man. I was like, fuck you all. You're all scum. You're all parasites. I don't want to fucking deal with you. Like, just piss off.
Mad.
I did that for 3 months and I missed the kitchen so much that I'm like, all right, I got to head back. So I did a couple of more months and I went back to the kitchen. It gave me perspective, but I wouldn't have been able to do what I'm doing now, and I wouldn't be in the good headspace I'm at now with my relationship with myself if I hadn't taken that break. That's what I needed to do, right? I need to prioritize myself. Maybe you need to do, like, maybe they need to come see you. Maybe their body's what's letting them down. Their diet shit, so they got low energy, and that leads to all sorts of, or even mental problems. If your health's wrong. So I think it's just a shift of priority for me. That's what I try to tell people. And what's going on now, this pandemic situation is going to change the paradigm a bit. But I always urge people to just figure out what you're okay with and what you're not okay with, and don't cave on it. Okay. I've quit very good jobs because that boss has broken my core principles. They've overstepped my value set. And so I've just snatched it. I'm like, I'll see you later, man. And then I might have stress for like a week while I'm finding a job or whatever, but I'm far happier in the long run, because if you let yourself be abused once or twice or thrice, what's going to happen is that it's going to keep happening. And then it's a spiral. I hate what's happening, but I'm powerless to stop it because I didn't stop it when I should have. And now it's become a feedback loop. And a lot of people are incapable of, on their own, obviously, without help or mentoring or guidance, of realizing that first, and then knowing how to get themselves out of that situation and better themselves. For me, and just sort of on the tail end of that, you find yourself a mentor. I did. I'm sure you have one too. And anybody who's got good, solid mentors will tell you that they're worth their weight in gold. And they're very, very valuable. Even if it's a sounding board or whatever, that's something that I caught on to maybe a little late. But yeah, I've got a couple of really good ones now, and they don't necessarily have to be in the kitchen too. They can be a big brother or whatever, but someone who could sort of be a guiding light and sort of just a reflection of those priorities where you can sort of bounce them back a little bit. It's always helpful.
Absolutely. I think just on that, like, and again, I do have mentors, and I have had, a few, and I really can't stress how beneficial that has been to me. And someone said to me, so interesting, a couple of years ago, and it's called modeling. And if you have a life or a career, you follow someone that has a life or career, that maybe you like, or maybe that you would want. I know for me and what I do, the only reason that I was able to start ChefFit and actually deliver what we deliver now is by getting a mentor and filling the gaps and the things I didn't know, and modeling a structure that made sense. For me, I couldn't have done it if I hadn't of made a commitment to someone. And it could be whatever way you wrangle yourself into it. There's paid mentors, there's free mentors. Maybe it's someone you know, maybe it's someone you work for, whatever. It can come from anyone. But someone who is potentially ahead of you in some aspect of your life that you would like to improve on. That's a very, very big thing. Rob, you touched on principles there, and you touched on employers, and that was my next thing that I was going to jump to. So, like, taking it back, the chefs ultimately need to learn to prioritize what's important within life, because when you don't prioritize yourself or your personal life eventually, and you only prioritize career, well, you and your personal life are going to crumble at some point. And we were talking about, weight gain or fucking energy or whatever. I think they're all symptoms of that problem. They're a symptom of not putting yourself first, prioritizing work, and getting trapped in that chef life, fucking whatever that is.
Yeah. Definitely.
So when you were like, okay, right, I have walked away from really good jobs on paper due to breaking those principles. What principles do you live by, or do you have? And, you know, I suppose why, and how did you ever come across?
Yeah. So I don't have many. I've only got a couple, but I've got, like, they're all deal breakers though. So if you say you're going to do something, and this is in a professional sense, like if you've employed me and you've given me a set of conditions I'm going to work under, and you break those conditions, I'm going to walk. Right? And not over something little, like, I mean, like major stuff. Like if you say my salary's this and it turns out to be that, see you later, man. I'm not hanging around. Okay. If you say, oh, you're not going to work splits, or you're not going to do this, and then you fundamentally change what our agreement was, I'm going to walk, because that tells me you have no respect for me or your word. Right? And I guess the other one is culture. Not everybody fits in every kitchen. Okay. There's places I can't work because how I am just doesn't fit in that venue. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that venue. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with me per se, I guess. But it's just a bad fit. Right. So, for example, I walked into for a trial once to a kitchen. I didn't know the restaurant was owned by a church. No swearing in the kitchen. That's not gonna fly, man. Like I know. Like he walked in, he told me that. I'm like, look, man, I'm gonna be honest with you. That's just, you know, that's the thing. So I guess when that principle comes, like that principle would sort of speak to you as a principle. That would sort of be, I'm not going to put myself in a position where I'm going to suffer, or I have to drastically change who I am just to sort of fit into a place. Yeah. And I guess another one would be, if I'm not challenged or given the chance to challenge myself, or if I'm not given the chance to be sort of, I don't necessarily have to be promoted everywhere I go, but I have to be given. I'm not the type of guy, I can't just stand at a bench, cut onions, and then go and cook a pasta. Like I have to be given challenges or tasks, or I have to have responsibility given to me. So like, that's what I thrive on. Yeah. So my principles are just like, I guess honesty, is a main one.
Yeah.
Obviously is like the thing. And I need to be constantly challenged, you know, and I need to be in a place that is going to help me do that. And these days I won't work anywhere where it doesn't let me learn more. Yeah. You know, like a lot of chefs sort of get to around the 20-year mark and they just kind of chill into their own little niche. Yeah. And I sort of won't do that. And for anyone who's sort of trying to figure out, for me, it's a gut test. So, you know, Cameron, if it feels wrong, if your first instinct is that situation feels wrong, it probably is. Yeah. To you. Yeah. Right? It might not be for someone else, but to you, that's wrong. So that's my first thing. If my first instinct is like, that's not right, and I feel uneasy about it, that's sort of generally what I try to go on. You get that with people too, you know, like you meet someone, you're like, I don't know about you. It's the same sort of thing. And I'm sure everybody's been there at sort of some point. But getting clear about them and what you will and won't put up with is very important. And you'll differ from me. Other people will differ from everybody else. Like, people are willing to put up and do different things. Yeah. You know, so. Okay.
And I think with that, and maybe that's something, you know, that dives a little bit deeper, and it's something that I'm very, very big on. You know, your principle and your code as a person is the thing. Like, a principle, for anyone who doesn't know, it's like an unwritten law that you have for your life, and you decide to live by. And you know that when you don't abide by that law or that principle, shit goes awry. So you got to figure out what that is. You got to know what you don't want. And then when you know what you don't want to deal with, then you know what you do want to deal with, you know. And I think for a lot of chefs, if you were able to give yourself a code You know what I mean? A way of living. Like maybe you're looking at Rob's stuff and you consume. Maybe you look at Chef's videos and you're able to get some of that across. But if you're able to have your own set of principles as a person of what you won't accept, there's a very, very good chance that you won't end up in a lot of these dire situations that we're talking about within this industry. And I think employers have kind of been let get away with shit for so long that there's exploitation there. And when chefs don't have necessarily something that they're willing to say, well, actually, I'm not willing to accept that. I'm not willing to accept that. You know, they won't be willing to say that. So they'll just accept the abuse. And it's a fucking vicious cycle that happens over and over and over again. And this is the same thing within chefs.
Sorry, Cameron, just on that real quick. I want people to understand that it's about what you will and won't do either. So, for example, part of I am never late for work. I am never late. I am always extremely clean. So hygiene should be important for chefs, but your personal code will work both ways, right? And so if you get it right, so I'm never, ever, ever late for work. I'm never, ever dirty. My uniforms are always starched. My knives are always sharp. There are things I will do at work, though. I do swear a little bit. I do carry on a little bit. I can get a bit excited and sort of go off on tangents. And there are things I'm not very good. There are things I'm not very good at, and there are things I'm better at. And when I'm clear on that, that allows me to understand where I fit too. So it's not just about what I expect from employers. It's about what I can expect from myself. So then when I'm looking for a new job, or if I'm looking for a new crew, or I'm introduced to a new situation, I know myself better how I'm going to fit in there, because I know what my personal code is inside as well. It's not just about what you expect from others. That personal code must also be what you expect from yourself as well. And if you get those two sort of sets, I guess I want to say, if you get those two sort of sides of that equation right, like you said, man, it'll go a long way to keeping you out of trouble and keeping you on the path you want to be on. If you can get those sort of two right,
Yeah, and I suppose it's because how you do anything is how you do everything, and if you're, those that we don't question those small, moments where we let ourselves off the hook, whether that be not ironing your whites or coming in and doing a job half-hourly, or doing it slow, or being inefficient. Like all of these small things you do regularly, ultimately they determine what happens later on. We don't even realize it, And I always say to people, it's like, you wouldn't be making your bed first thing in the morning, because like nothing else matters if your house is fucked and your clothes are dirty and your room is in shit. Like, it's why is anything else important? That's first priority, because that sets the precedent for everything else that you're going to do, and people need to get that understanding going. So Rob, with all of this in mind, you have a group, Pro Chef U. Tell us why you created that.
So that was, at first, to be completely honest with everybody, at first it was sort of a bit of a vanity project. So it was just kind of to see if I could. It was just like, it was a bit of, not fun. I don't want to say it was a bit of fun, but it was definitely a vanity project. Like, oh, I'm going to build this group and I'm going to have this, sort of thing. And then, the response at first wasn't all that great. and then I sort of dug a little bit deeper, and I did a little bit of work with my coach and my mentors and stuff. And so I guess the ultimate reason why I built it was to give a different space for sort of people to sort of interact in. Chef groups are notoriously toxic.
Negative. Yep.
There are some very good ones. There's some very good ones, but there's a lot of negative ones too. And I guess I didn't want people who were learning or trying to get into the trade. I wanted as many people as possible to not have that negative sort of experience be sort of some of the first things they experience in the trade, because I think that sets people up for failure. Totally. It scares people off. It sours them. And look, the internet, more in particular, Facebook and social media is not the greatest tool for social interaction. There is a lot of things that sort of get lost in translation, and it's very hard sometimes to have meaningful, deep conversations, because a lot of it only ever goes one way. I shout at you, you shout at me. It's very hard to sort of do it. But I just wanted to give a space where people who are beginning can have access to veterans and leaders within the industry, and have those people sort of impart their knowledge on them. And just sort of be an example of sort of what I would like the industry to look at. There's banter in there. There's a bit of carry on. Not everybody gets along. That's how life is. But there's no like abuse. There's no question that's too small. There's no problem too big we're not going to have a go at. We've had a few members, you know, they sort of cry out for help a little bit. They're really struggling. The community gets together. So I guess at its heart, I sort of built it to try to be a microcosm of what I'd like to see, a cross section, if you will, of what I'd like to see sort of the rest of the industry emulated. And I run the group like I sort of run my kitchens when I've been a head chef or I've been a sous chef or something. Everybody gets treated equal. Everybody has a voice. You know, there's like I said, there's always going to be a bit of carry on. It's humans. It's the internet. It's what you're going to do. But and I've tried to. I think probably the main difference we would have in there, and a lot of your content's up in there in your own unit, and I have a lot of mental health stuff from my personal coach and mentor. I've done some like leadership work. We have it's a lot of chefs get taught how to cook and then they're sent on their way, and then they realize, oh fuck, this is such a small part of the toolkit I need to be successful. And there's gaps, man. There's gaps everywhere. You're filling one. I guess at the end of the day, to make it simple, I guess, is that I thought we needed a more holistic approach to producing successful and happy chefs, which then lead to a more sustainable industry. So I guess that's why the group was built the way it was. And it's got all that extra content that's not just about cooking or whatever. It's got that extra stuff so people can sort of consume it and have a sort of place to sort of go over that and ask questions that they might not even know needed to be asked. Like, oh, is this job actually toxic? Like, is this actually what I want to do? So I've had a couple of people be like, you know, they've been cooking for a few years and they're like, I'm not even sure if I want to do it. I'm like, well, man, look, I'm going to be honest with you, answer that question quick. Like, you know, you need to be able to answer that question. So I guess that's why it's built. That's why it's built the way it was. And that's sort of why people interact with it the way they do. Yeah. And that's why I love having like you, for example, you know, with your video drops, and that's why we put them all together in the units and we sort of have it all sort of built in one spot. And then obviously food too, because you can't have a chef group without food.
Yeah, 100%.
You know,
but I do think it's very important to have that kind of positive environment, and you're spot on. There is a lot of toxicity in groups, especially on Facebook, and I think social media is a very strange way to communicate with people. I think you lose a lot of context in what's said, and I think it's very important, especially for young chefs coming up, because I've seen it fucking happen. I've seen people put up dishes for critique that, you know, potentially weren't the best, but like, fuck me. You know, you would see some really horrible things said, and it's like, where the fuck are these people coming from? So the fact that that there's that Pro Chef U is there, and it's a, you know, it's a safe space, let's say, and if you are going to get criticized, it's constructive and not just looking to fucking destroy your soul.
No.
And coming at it, go ahead.
No, you're right. I was just going to say, people fall through the cracks. Like, there have been some blow-ups in there. It's not a utopia, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's just realistic and that's human, you know, but you do your best to try and manage it. And I know there's other groups that aren't fucking managed, and it's a free-for-all, you know, and it's not great.
The Wild West.
but kind of topping this, and we'll bring this into the harbour with this, you know, as you were saying, a holistic approach to a path or a structure for chefs to follow and develop within their career. You know, cooking is one aspect, and I think a massive part of it, if you're going to be successful, is your ability to lead. And I know you're big on this principle, and it's a big part of what I do in Chef It, and it's ultimately the only way that you're going to truly, if you want to perform within a kitchen in a leading role, but also yourself in your own life and leading the people around you, is responsibility and ownership. And that's such a fucking huge part of what Chef It is about. it's like, listen, I can't hold your bollocks for you every day to make you exercise. There has to be a responsibility on your side to go, this is my life. The outcome of my life is determined by me. And when you understand that, then your failures are yours to own, but your success is yours to own as well. And it's not fucking random. And I think within a kitchen, it's a very similar way. And a problem that we see is maybe an abuse of power, where someone's put in a role of authority as a head chef, but they're not leaders and they don't take responsibility. No. They point the finger and blame, or they lose the fucking plot at someone over something small. For you, I'd be interested to have your take on this to finish off, man, is like, to be a good leader within a kitchen, what do you feel it requires?
So the top three things, two of them you just said. Well, I guess responsibility and ownership for me, they're kind of the same thing. Because if you take responsibility for what you do, that leads to ownership because you understand what it is, right? Yeah. My other one would be communication, right? So many people don't understand how to communicate with each other clearly and effectively. And I think, and that speaks to a lot of things: education, upbringing, whatever, lack of emotional awareness. But I think communication is something a lot of people lack, I guess. And I guess the third one would be, and this sounds really wooey, but it's compassion, right? For me, the most effective leaders are always able to put themselves in the shoes of the people they're leading, right? How do they feel and how does this impact them? If you can break that down and you can understand that, you can then use your responsibility and you can then communicate effectively how best to meet their needs and extract full worth out of them, right? So, for example, I have last job, I had a dishwasher, right? And he couldn't work very much, but when he was there, he was very, very effective, right? And you sort of you had to rearrange your roster for him and all this kind of stuff. However, he always worked hard. He was always coming in there early, and it was a second job for him to help put his kid through school. All right, so it was on me to sort of like, okay, man, I'll help you with that. And then he helped me tremendously in return, right? So when he was there, he worked hard. So I guess the compassion angle is something a lot of people don't. And what I was saying before about like the older chefs, like, oh, I did it hard, I did it this way, so you have to, because that's the only way it can be done. It's really shitty attitude. Like it's a really fucking poor attitude. And if you can empathize and be compassionate about what maybe they're going through shit at home or whatever it is, or they have a substance abuse problem or they have some sort of learning difficulty that means they might be dyslexic so they can't read prep lists, whatever the fuck it is, man. If you can understand your team's problems and then make them yours in a way, right? So, and what I mean by that is like, okay, I have a team member that's giving me 110% rah-rah, but I need to learn how to sort of navigate this to get the most out of him. Yeah. Okay, man, well, own that, own that. And if it goes sideways, it goes sideways, but you've been responsible for that. And then I think another main thing that people don't understand, and so many people in leadership and management roles, they think it's their job to look after the job, right? So I've been a head chef. It's not really, for me, it's not my job to run the kitchen. It's my job to give my crew the best possible tools to run that kitchen. I'm not looking after a job. I'm looking after the people beneath me doing those jobs. And I mean beneath me as in like on the corporate ladder, not, beneath me. Yeah. But if I look after those people and if I give my staff the best tools, culture, space, training to get that done for me, I don't have to worry about all the minutiae. I don't have to worry about if the onions are diced properly or if the bloody cool room's been stacked. I don't have to do that because I've looked after the people that allow me to do that. And I guess it brilliantly, it comes full circle, because it comes back to where bosses are like, if you look after your staff, and any staff will tell you this, you've had good bosses look after you, you know, and it's such a simple truth that is just, I don't understand why it's not more implemented. I don't understand why it's not.
I think a lot of it's
frustrating sometimes.
Ego, you know, and I think what's vital about you talked about compassion there, you know, and it's like, you're not compassionate for the fucking sake of it. You're not compassionate to be nice, which is great, and it's a good human quality. But the compassion is there to get the best out of people. You know what I mean? To get them to perform to 100%. And I think a lot of the times when we see, you know, you're fucking scolding you know, look, my brother was telling me a story when he was coming up, and he used to work in a 2-star in Dublin, and he used to get sick on his way to work because it's a very old school kitchen. You go in, and he was literally like, I think he was fucking
stressed.
Still,
you're making himself sick in the guts. Yeah, he doesn't want to go to work. Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, head chef fucking grab you, throw you into the fucking walk-in fridge, and then kick you up the arse and shit like this. And like, a lot of the time, bully boy tactics and shit like that, you think you're holding a standard. You think you're like, oh, stands up here. One, you're just being a fucking dickhead, and two, you're pleasing your ego. Like that. Sure, the person probably won't make that mistake again, but ask yourself, is there a better way to get that outcome? Because ultimately, that's what the responsibility is about. The responsibility of running the kitchen is to get the entire team to work in unison to deliver a great result, which is usually good food, good service, and a fucking happy environment. But it's like, when you're coming down hard on people, that's usually a projection of how you fucking feel about yourself, and not necessarily what's the best thing to get the job done. I think people need to make that fucking distinction, you know, especially in a kitchen environment, when there's, you know, there can be a degree of fragile ego. And when you're in that head chef role and you're not necessarily a leader, you're going to see a lot of shit like that. And that's not a good thing. And it's not a positive thing, because there's ways to hold high standards without fucking going through someone for a shortcut. And I think the compassion thing is like, you're doing that to get a result and obviously be a good leader. You're not just doing that for the fucking sake of doing it.
No, exactly.
Totally. Good shit. We've dived into some heavy stuff. It's an hour gone by already, my friend.
Oh, really? Oh, shit, it has too. Yeah, right. I haven't even seen it. Nice.
Good stuff. So, Rob, taking this thing into Harbour, bro, Pro Chef Use, the Facebook group. I want every chef that's in here, if you're, you know, good head on your shoulders and you're constructive and you're willing to bring something to the table and you want to learn, join Pro Chef U on Facebook. Is there anywhere else people can see your stuff, mate, or anywhere, you know, we can direct the chefs towards?
Just my personal profile isn't a personal profile. It's all industry based. It's all public. Robert James Attwood. You'll see my photo is very distinctive. It's a half chef jacket, half business suit. It's very, very distinctive. And yeah, like it's public, man. Like it's not a personal page. I don't have a personal Facebook page, I guess you could say. I just don't. So yeah, and I'm always up for a chat or whatever. And then obviously the group. And yeah.
Good shit. I think we need more people like you within this industry, dude. And I think a change is coming. There's definitely a shift happening, and hopefully through our own individual efforts, we can start to cause that and bring more positivity to the industry, and I suppose remove a lot of the really negative elements that we spoke about. Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for jumping on. Chef,
thanks for having me, Cam.
Yeah, no worries, bro. Chefs, give us a 5-star review on iTunes and Podbean if you are listening to it there. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe and like the channel, for Christ's sake. And if on these social media platforms, share it, like it, and tag a chef who needs to hear this kind of stuff, you know. Like we don't grow and the message doesn't get out there unless you're willing to support us and put us out there, guys. So any support, any help on that front is greatly appreciated. And I hope you've enjoyed this episode with us. Much love to all of you, Rob. Thank you so much again, man, for doing this. Fantastic episode. We will get you on again, my man. Okay.
Thanks, Cam. Looking forward to it, man. Thank you.
Champion. All right, chefs. That's us for today. Stay safe. Be good.
Yeah.